Special thanks to the Dramatist Guild Fund for welcoming us into their space for today's episode. Providing the music hall at DGF for writers to use for free is one of the many ways the Dramatist Guild Fund supports writers. I invite you all to find out more about DGF by visiting their website at www.dgfund.org or on Twitter at DGFund.
Something New is supported by listeners like you. Visit joelbnew.com and help this podcast continue to grow, thrive, and be a part of the creative conversation.
Are you working on something new? Are you working on something new? Are you working on something new?
Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to the Season 4 premiere of Something New, a musical theater podcast. I'm your host, Joel B. New. I can't believe we're sitting here on Season 4, you guys. Senior year. This is it. I mean, it's not it. I mean, this is not the final season. But doesn't it feel like, we've known each other since freshman year, and remember when we'd all sit in the cafeteria and eat ice cream for breakfast because we could? Maybe you still do that, and there's no judging. We're seniors now. We're older, we're wiser, we've written musicals, and we're just gonna shake some things up a bit. Guys, it's been so long. Usually I take a 3-month break, and this was a 4-month break. For various reasons, but oh my gosh, I've missed you guys so much. I'm sitting here drinking coffee out of my Something New mug, Season 1, and drinking what's probably, I think, the last drop of peppermint mocha creamer that I have in the house, which means that the holiday season is finally coming to a close. Some people say that Epiphany is the day where the holidays officially come to a close. But for me, it's when the peppermint mocha is out. And then that day is today. But today's about new beginnings because it's a new season. So that works out just fine. You guys are my peppermint mocha now. So as I said, this is our 4th year doing this. There's going to be a lot of new elements, so just let's all get loosey-goosey and play with it. For example, you may have noticed that our theme music sounds a little different than it has in the past, and you are correct. My friend Joel Dickinson, who's an awesome DJ, has done a really, really bang-up job remixing the Something New theme song, and I'm really excited to share that with you. That will be part of the intro and the outro. Maybe when I, do a little commercial or two or something like that. But that's going to be around, and I hope you like that as much as I like that, because it just makes me smile. Let's see. We're also going to be adding a visual component to Season 4 whenever possible or whenever appropriate. In this episode, in fact, our singer, Gabe Violet, nicely let me video record our song session. And you can find that on YouTube, so look for that. Gabe is awesome, and I'm really excited about this song. This episode is also being transcribed for my hearing-impaired fans, as well as those who just like to read. You can, you'll be able to, there will be a link to download the transcript of my interview with Mr. Arden, with the episode description and in my newsletter. Another thing we're doing in Season 4 is sometimes there will be multiple guests per episode. Maybe there will be a different singer than the person I'm interviewing. So far I've got 12 interviewees lined up, and their careers include hosting, director-choreographer, producers, activists, nutritionists, fight directors, financial planners, and there is a podcast alumni reunion currently in the works, and I'm really excited to share all of those wonderful people and their talents and their stories with you in Season 4. And finally, thank you all so much for tuning in to yet another season of Something New. I wouldn't be doing this without you, and I'm super appreciative that people are still listening and having a good time. I'm still having a good time, and without further ado, here comes episode 401 my interview with Michael Arden featuring a performance by Gabe Violet. Enjoy.
Are you working on something new?
This is Joel B. New, and you're listening to Something New, my chance to talk with some of the savviest performers in the theater industry, hear their stories, work through and premiere a brand new original song, and get to the heart of what makes them the working, multifaceted artists they have come to be. Today's guest artist is a performer and director. He recently directed Deaf West's production of Spring Awakening at both the Wallace and Inner City Arts in Los Angeles, which has subsequently become that musical's first Broadway revival, now playing at the Brooks Atkinson Theater through January 24th. Other directing credits include L.A. Ronde and, for the record, John Hughes. As an actor, he has appeared in Deaf West's Big River and Pippin, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, The Times They Are A-Changin', Bear, and Aspects of Love. His film and TV credits include Source Code, Bride Wars, The Odd Life of Timothy Green, and Anger Management on FX. He is a presidential scholar in the arts and is artistic director of the LA-based site-specific theater company, The Forest of Arden. Obviously, I'm talking about Michael Arden. Michael Arden, thanks for being on my show today.
So happy to be here, Joel.
I'm happy to have you. You're my first episode back, season 4.
Well, let's get it started with a bang.
Let's do it.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. Happy to have you. So, I don't know if we haven't officially met, but I first met you back in 2004. You were doing this thing called Art Song Dance with Ricky Ian Gordon.
That's right. Yeah,
And-
we did that a few times.
Yeah?
It was a collaboration with Ricky Ian Gordon and Sean Curran Dance Company.
Yes.
Which I don't even know if they're still dancing, that company. I hope so. 'Cause
I
they're
hope
really
so
incredible.
too. Yeah, it was a
Yeah,
beautiful production.
we worked on it at Jacob's Pillow, and then we did here at the Joyce
That's
Theater.
where I saw it, at the
Yeah,
Joyce.
it was really exciting. It was a bunch of songs by Ricky and
Yeah, it was
incredible dances.
beautiful, and that's when I became an official member of the Michael Arden fan club.
Oh, yeah, goodness.
No, now I was going to ask you where you come from, but then I was like, why don't I just Google you? And did you know that you have your own Wikipedia page?
I do know that. I don't know how accurate it all is, but I am aware of it.
I always feel like you've made it.
Everybody
Yeah.
Googles themselves every now and then
yeah.
just to make sure.
I have a
that,
Google alert.
My naked
I'm
pictures
alerted.
haven't leaked yet.
Yeah. Knock on wood. So according to Wikipedia, you come from Texas. How
Yes.
right is that?
That is right.
That is right.
I was born in Midland, Texas, which is a little town in West Texas, midway between Dallas and El Paso. That's what it's
Okay.
called, Midland.
Nice. That makes sense. And when did you come to New York, and for what purpose?
I came to New York right after high school, where I had actually done my last 2 years of high school at the Interlochen Arts Academy in Michigan, which is a boarding school, and actually a lot of people who are now here working, I went to high school with there. Alexandra Silber was in my class, and an actor named Nick Westrate, and Dane Laffrey, who designed Spring Awakening, was my high school roommate. A bunch of us are here.
Wow.
Santina Fontana and I were at Interlochen together, and yeah, it was a great little crew we had going. But yeah, I moved to New York right after high school in 2001, and went to school at Juilliard here in the acting program.
Nice. Now, I knew you first as a performer, but I'm really excited about this new avenue, or at least it feels relatively new to me. This the title of director. Is that fair to say? Does that still feel relatively new to you?
Yeah, it does. I mean,
You do have a show on Broadway, though.
I've been working as an actor for a while now, and directing for a few years. So it's definitely a new sort of series of chapters in my book. But
When did you feel the impulse to direct?
I think I had always really wanted to. I mean, when I was a kid, I would force. I lived in a trailer park actually when I was a kid, and I used to gather up all the kids from the park and try to put on productions in the fields and build sets, and I probably quite tyrannically made them participate. So I've always had a little bit of it in me, and I took a directing class in high school and stuff like that, but had always sort of been on stage as an actor. Although I tried to sort of continue work in other areas of the field because I was really interested in lots of things. I interned as a lighting designer for a summer. just all over. I've done some composing. I sort of am really interested in all aspects and think it can't hurt to learn as much as you can about the field you're in. And then a few years ago, probably 8 years ago or so, I started asking directors if I could assist them or be an associate and stuff, which I felt was extremely important. And I asked if I could shadow producers I shadowed the production side of it during Newsies, and so I sort of done all these sort of, just go to people that I respect and say, hey, I would love to learn more. Can I watch you, or can I shadow you, or can I assist you? And I think it's really important for there are many people who are really comfortable and thrilled doing just like being an actor or whatever, but that was never really. I always wanted to be in other areas. So,
how long before The Forest of Arden came about? Which is a Shakespeare reference.
It is a Shakespeare reference,
and not just a reference to your last name.
It's actually a Shakespeare reference. It's but also to my last name. It's the name of the forest that they retreat into in As You Like It, the Forest of Arden. So it always seemed to me like a place where people could go for refuge. I was living in LA, which I still do part of the time, and working on a television series with Charlie Sheen called Anger Management, and I was really missing theater and had noticed that a lot of my friends were really desperate to create new work and do new work, and so I sort of started this theater collective called The Forest of Arden, and we did our first show as a production of an adaptation of La Ronde that I adapted. Actually, L.A. Ronde. So it's not La Ronde, it's L.A. Ronde. It's sort of set in Los Angeles, and it was site-specific and took place in 10 different locations throughout a neighborhood.
Wow.
And Alexandra Silber was actually in that, speaking of. She was in that production. And, it was really, really fun, and out of that, this production of Spring Awakening was sort of born out of that company in this collaboration with Deaf West.
Was the 2003 revival of Big River your first foray?
Yeah, that was the first time I'd ever met a deaf person, actually.
Really?
Was my audition for Big River.
Huh.
I just happened to get the audition and went and said, okay, you have to learn some sign language, and I did my best and met another actor named Tyrone Giordano who played Huck Finn, and we auditioned together, and I was like, how is this going to work? But I spoke my lines, and an interpreter behind me signed, and he signed his lines, and the interpreter voiced for him, and it actually just really worked, and sort of, I'll never forget that day because it was really illuminating in the fact that just in the sense that art can sort of actually ascend and above language in a way. It can sort of break down barriers. So that was my first experience working with not only Deaf West, but anyone deaf and sign language, and I learned my lines in sign language and then became more and more adept at the language, and it grew to be something that I've really loved and
it's definitely
have a point of view about, and
it's certainly set you down a path.
Yeah, not one that I ever expected, or sort of like, a lot of people who sign or are interested in ASL or deaf culture have like a deaf friend or a deaf family member or a parent or something. And no, it was really just, the universe opening a door for me.
Do you consider yourself fluent in ASL now, or is that...
I definitely conversationally fluent, yeah.
Why is sign language theater such an important art form to you? Like, do you consider its own thing? Because, like, as I was doing very light research for this episode, some websites call, definitely define deaf community as, like, its own culture.
Yeah.
And so do you see sign language theater as, obviously, as an extension of,
Well, I just think it's
theater?
It's just good theater. I don't think it's like, I think it's a type of theater, but I think, I'd like to hope that, at least with Spring Awakening, we're not doing sign language theater. We're just
you're just doing good theater.
We're just telling theater through the lens of a certain time and place and context, which happens to be these deaf kids at a time when sign language wasn't allowed. So it's sort of just a context for it. I never really thought that it's like making deaf theater or making hearing theater. I think we're just making theater.
Yeah.
But I do think it's the use of sign language in theater is incredibly exciting, and it's able to illuminate the text in a visual way, which, you go to the theater, it's not like you're just reading, it's, for a hearing person, half of it is visual, if not more. So I think it's a way of physicalizing language that can sort of help us as the audience understand meaning a bit more, because you think about the human body, and the head and brain and mouth are the size of a basketball, and the body is the size of 20 basketballs. You think, well, if we're trying to communicate with our body, then we might have an opportunity as a theater maker to be more successful in that.
How was that show selected for Deaf West, and when did you come on board?
It was actually Deaf West came to me after I had done LA Rond and asked if I would be interested in working with them on something, and the idea came from my soon-to-be husband, Andy Miantis, actually. He said, well, why don't you do Spring Awakening? It could really work, because it's about people who were denied a voice, and it's about people struggling to communicate, and what better treatment of it than with what Deaf West does. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Luckily, I'm
Smart man.
marrying the smartest person I know. And so we met with DJ Kurz, who's the artistic director, and sort of had a pitch and said, what if the root of the problem of the play comes from the fact that Vendla is a deaf child of a hearing parent, and her mother doesn't know the signs, just doesn't physically know how to tell her where babies come from, and that sort of is a problem, and it's a really simple and clear way of illuminating the problem. So that's sort of how it came about. We did a workshop. We worked on a few numbers, and I enlisted Spencer Liff, who had done LA Rond with me, and my associate Blake Silver, who I'd worked with on that as well, and started putting it together.
Yeah. So scripting the play with American Sign Language, how much did you help inform that?
Yeah, well, we had a team of 3 ASL masters who did the translation, but I was very much involved in all of that, which, getting the actual meaning, because it's not a literal language. It's not like a word-for-word thing, and I wanted to make sure that both the deaf audiences and people who were hearing who also signed it's not like we were getting conflicting information. Mm-hmm. So that was definitely a huge part of the work, was actual, we translated the show, and our 3 ASL masters, Anthony Natalie, Elizabeth Green, and Shoshana Stern, were paramount in that. And then we also had our ASL consultant, Linda Bove, who people might know as Linda the Librarian from Sesame Street.
Yeah.
She came in and helped with sort of fresh set of eyes halfway through, and helping the hearing actors produce the signs. So it's sort of a twofold thing, there's
That's so cool.
The translation and then the production of the sign, because what good is a translation if you can't understand it? It's like, it's many of the company, in fact most, have really learned a new language. There's really only one person who came in with ASL experience of the hearing company. So yeah, it was a lot of work, but it was nice, when you get to spend that much time really examining something, it's incredibly helpful. You get to say, oh, well, why are we translating it? Actually helped me understand the text more.
Yeah,
because I had to truly find it's like I had to write. Yeah, it's like when you look at a piece of Shakespeare and you say, oh, how do I translate this?
Yeah.
And get it to mean, emotionally what it means, and literally what it means, and all those things. And Stephen Sater's lyrics are so much poetry that
it's beautiful, very visual, very visceral, mm-hmm. and not very literal a lot of the time.
I think it's helpful to this audience to get to see his poetry physically on a body, because
mm-hmm.
it is so, you sort of understand it in a way that you might not if you're just listening to it.
And then with sign language, people often come up with a sign for their name.
Yeah. Well, you don't come up with a sign for your name. You're given a sign.
You're given.
This is very important.
Okay.
It's a distinction. So, yeah, I waited a very long time to get my name signed. But you were given your name signed by a deaf person. And usually it has to do with like some character trait or something funny one does. And
What's
name
your
can
sign?
Mine is a little embarrassing. It's this, because it was given to me by Shoshana Stern, who is our ASL master, one of them, because the whole idea of this came from my mind, and so that's...
Oh, I like that. We're gonna provide a transcript of this episode.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. Cool. Mine was given to me by my friend Colleen Smith, who was the only deaf person in our high school in Nebraska.
And what is yours?
It was Joel. So it's the J, where she thought I was cute.
Oh,
So,
that's nice.
Yeah, it was nice. So I'm curious how the signs for the names of the characters came about.
Yeah, well, we just wanted them to be identifiable and simple.
Yeah.
Melchior, because he thought the M to the head. He was a thinker.
Okay. Okay.
Venla. I mean, usually masculine signs are more
up here.
or higher, feminine signs
Yes.
lower. But so Venla. So mostly letters.
Yeah.
Was sort of where we took the because they have to be introduced very early on before we know much about the characters.
Yeah.
Hunchins is up here because this is close to horny, and he's a little horny.
Yeah.
Horny. So and some of the teachers like Knockenbrook and Knuppeldick are also there's a bit of joke in the signing, meaning like dick bitch, and there's some like dirty signs within the name signs to give the deaf audience a sort of sense of the humor of those names.
Some nice Easter eggs.
Yeah, so we spent a lot of time with developing those name signs, but I think they did a really nice job.
Yeah, I really appreciated them. So this is Spring Awakening's first Broadway revival, and I was certainly around when the last one was here, and as were you. How important was it for you to honor that original production?
Oh, very, very important. I mean, I was a huge fan of the first production.
As was I.
I hope I've honored Michael Mayer's work in this. I happened to be at like the first preview at the Atlantic, so I really saw it from its inception here on stage in New York. I really wanted to honor what he had done. There are a couple nods. We have this one character uses a microphone.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a nod to Michael's work, and
I think your production is beautiful. I don't even compare them.
No, I think they're very
things.
different. I think they're sort of about different things in a way. I think the deaf context gives it an inward feel. Like I think this one is more reflective, whereas the other one was a bit more
in your face,
rageful.
Yeah,
if that's the right word.
Like, I don't know about you, but like obviously because I'm 10 years older, like the kids felt much younger to me this time.
Well, they're supposed to. I mean, they're
supposed
14 years old.
Yeah,
13. So I really, that was something we talked a lot about their age. Obviously, the actors aren't quite that young.
No.
But
there were especially the actress playing Venla, whose name escapes me.
Sandra May Frank.
She's fantastic.
Yeah, she's stunning, and
yeah, and
really
I felt very protective of her.
It was very important to me in casting of the play. I was like, we have to believe these are all kids fumbling. What's that Sarah McLachlan song, "Fumbling Toward Ecstasy"? If you remember that,
I do
name
remember
of
that.
But that actually is what was very important to me. That Melchior had to be. You had to believe that this was the first time these kids had ever touched.
Yeah.
In the scene at the oak tree, and then in the hayloft, it needs to be. I mean, these kids don't know what they're doing. They're children stumbling into something. And she's got a line about fumbling mutely with their rude hands, which I mean, what better sort of line?
There were a couple
I was
of
like,
lines.
no, they have to be young. They have to be kids. That's what makes it a tragedy. Otherwise, it's just another day in the back of the car.
Yeah.
Another roll in the hay.
What time did you get here?
This episode is brought to you in part by Non-Equity the Musical by Danielle Terzinski and Paul D. Mills. Non-Equity the Musical is a funny and heartwarming new musical about the life of non-union actors in New York. In the face of rejections, degrading survival jobs, and 5 a.m. open calls, this colorful cast of characters learn that living the dream is not what they thought it would be. Amid infectious songs and witty lyrics, see passion turn into results as we witness main character Wendy refuse to give up on her dream and find her own way of achieving it. This is a very talented team of writers that you should all be looking out for. Non-Equity the Musical is available on iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, Apple Music, Google Play, Amazon Music, Amazon On Demand, Rhapsody, and more. Phew. Check it out.
This is the strike of the non-unionized line.
Lucky to have an incredible acting company, but in the design of it and to really give, create this world for the audience so they really understood what Germany might have been like at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I really kept going back to, okay, no, this is Germany at this time. That's why that Chiron is
Right
on
at the
the
beginning.
when you walk in. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's very important that this is a specific time and place. This isn't sometimes when we go into
Once upon a
songs,
time.
in the original production, it's very much like, this is now, we're playing on a microphone, this is a sort of mirror to nature in the audience, and here, they can't hold mics, obviously, because they're signing, and and you have to look at each other when you sign, so it really is contained within this time and space.
And this is probably my naivete, but have there been productions of new work that incorporate ASL, or is it primarily an existing show that tends to get this sort of treatment?
It depends. I know there's quite a few plays that new works that are enlisting ASL and deaf characters, which is really thrilling. There was a fabulous play on called Tribes that was here a few years back.
Yeah.
That Russell Harvard actually starred in with a deaf character, and it's really about deafness. And stuff is popping up all over the place. So I think there is actually writers are starting to write deaf characters, or which is exciting because there's incredible stories to tell, and it's
Incredible actors to utilize.
And also I think a very interesting topic, and being able to introduce deaf culture to hearing culture. I mean, it's interesting. It's it's an American culture, and it is really the only language born out of America. It's not. England has a different sign language than America does. Yeah, completely different language. So it really is a language born out of this specific culture, which I think is, exciting, because an American audience will understand more sign, I think, than they think they would, because it is born out of our experience and culture. So I'm very fascinated by that, and I hope that writers and directors continue to develop work with deaf characters, because they have a lot to say, no pun intended.
What types of shows or stories better lend themselves to this type of storytelling?
Stories about communication, stories about when people separate, I think, about community, about marginalization. I think there's, imagine being a deaf person in a hearing world. You probably are denied so much because people don't think of you. Any story about that might lend itself. I don't know. I mean, I would be thrilled to see Into the Woods in ASL. I mean, there was a great article yesterday that came out on Playbill that Ben Rimlau wrote about what 10 shows should be done, with ASL.
Oh, no way.
And it's a really interesting read, too.
How does your experience as a performer inform or even enhance your directing approach, and vice versa?
I'm so glad that I'm a performer and an actor, because I think it helps me. I can see when an actor needs help, and I've worked with directors in the past who have been incredibly unhelpful to the actor, because they're sort of thinking in product as opposed to process, and so I think it's, I hope that I can communicate with an actor and ask questions that are helpful and allow them to do their best work without sort of asking for a result.
And when you go back to doing an acting gig, after you've directed something, what do you bring back with you?
Just a sense of sort of, I'm doing a bit more, I'm trying to sort of do a bit more work on my own, and I sort of can imagine what the director wants, but in a way you sort of have to forget all that stuff, because an actor, the best actors really only know what they walk in the room as the character knowing, and the rest they just have to be open to. So it's an interesting back and forth of sort of taking off one hat and putting on another cap.
Would you ever wear both?
I don't know. I think that would be really difficult. Then again, perhaps.
Yeah, never said
I don't know. I think it would be hard to sort of get the overall picture. I think if
Yeah.
I would definitely need a very good associate, which I luckily have. His name is Blake Silver.
Not that I'm going to put you in a box, but how do you define yourself as a director? Like, I look at your work and I think, I think about like John Doyle, at least like when he first became like an international name in theater, like, he had like his thing, and we can see that and go like, oh, that's a John Doyle production.
Right.
Do you want your name and like sign language to be synonymous in that kind of way, or
Not necessarily. I mean,
Yeah.
I hope other directors work.
Yeah, me too.
With sign language, and I it's not going to be what, like, my next project is probably not going to have sign language in it. So I don't know I don't know how to answer that question.
That's okay.
I just hope to do
They're not all
good and
questions.
varied work. I hope to just continue asking difficult questions in theater, and both in musicals and plays. And I'd love to direct concerts. And
If I have a listener out there who's looking to transition into directing, what's something you wish you had known at the start, or any like mantras that you carry with you?
it takes a long time. It takes a while to get a project. The fact that Spring Awakening happened like this is sort of a miracle. It was very quick.
Yeah.
But there was 2 years of work before we came to New York.
Yeah.
Workshops, and it almost falling apart, and doing a small production, and then it almost falling apart, and then doing a big production, and then almost falling apart. So, it's just sort of patience and perseverance, and knowing that you are really steering the ship, and the distances can be great. Sometimes the oceans you must cross as a director in steering that ship. So just keep on, and don't be afraid to ask for advice from people you respect, because there's no better compliment than being asked for advice.
I'm not a big fan of asking people like, what are you doing next? But I also kind of know what's happening next. I don't know. Well, I saw that the Hunchback cast recording is coming out January 22nd.
January 22nd.
Very
It's
nice.
going to be very exciting.
I can't wait to hear it.
It was thrilling to record, actually.
Yeah, the idea of hearing you sing out there makes me very excited. And then Spring Awakening is going on tour in 2017.
Yes.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, it's very, very
Yeah.
exciting. When we started working on Spring Awakening, I just said, I just want kids to see this everywhere. I just want not only to be exposed to deaf culture and American Sign Language, but to hear and see this story, and hopefully, if I've done anything, or we've done anything, is open up they can begin a conversation with, maybe it's a parent and a child, or maybe it's like a parent and a parent, or maybe, just I want as many people to see it as possible. So going on tour is actually, I would say, I'm as much, or if not more excited about that than even coming to Broadway. So I'm really, really excited about that. And that people, I always say to the cast, I said, you have to play to the back row of the balcony, because sometimes the person in the back row who paid the smallest amount is the person who needs this story the most. And you think about kids who don't have the privilege of getting to come to New York. It's going to be so exciting to be able to expose them to this wonderful play, and this what Deaf West does, which I think is really exciting. So that's a while from now. But,
but
I'm
still,
really excited.
I'm really, really excited. I have quite a national audience, so I'm excited to keep apprised on that, and that my listeners will get to see this production.
Yeah, and we're still putting together what cities we're going to. So if you're out there and listening to this, and there's a touring house near you, write them, call them, say, bring Spring Awakening here, because we'd love to get as many cities in as possible.
What would you like to put out there for yourself? What do you...
I want to continue directing and creating new works, and looking at old works too. I would love to direct some Shakespeare, work in non-conventional spaces.
anything.
Trying to do all these right now. So I've got about 7 things. Like I feel like I'm in a kitchen and nothing's ready to be served to the diner yet, but everything's simmering in different pots right now.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully one of those is done pretty soon and ready to be eaten, consumed.
Cool. Well, I'll be hungry whenever it happens.
Oh, good. I'm glad you're extending that metaphor as long as possible.
Thank you. I love me a good metaphor.
Yeah. I guess the last thing I would say is that it's just so important to support your fellow artist, no matter where you are, and to become involved in a community and use the art that you make, in whatever sort of side you come at it from, to begin conversation within communities. I mean, that's why I wanted to create this company in LA. I said, there's a need for this. There's a want for this. There's a lack of something. And so I think it's our jobs as artists and people who support and create art to continue that. And it's not about Broadway. It's really about providing the American public with a chance to reflect on themselves and begin to ask questions. And I think, people say you can't change the world with theater, but you can, because it's just in a very small way. But
it starts with a conversation.
Yeah. I mean, a bomb can change the world very quickly, but a conversation or bringing together of people with different ideas and points of view is probably a much better way. Yeah, I hope.
I agree. No, I would think so, for sure. Okay, and now comes the part where we set up the song. As you know, I like my podcast seasons to be working in tandem with a creative project of mine, and this season I've decided to dedicate the first half to creating my very first solo EP entitled Cabot Cove. I'm trying these songs out on singers who aren't me, primarily because, honestly, the more the merrier, and it's easier for me to look at my songs and be a little less precious about them if someone else is wearing them, if that makes sense. In March 2016, we'll be launching a Kickstarter campaign to help produce Cabot Cove. The first song that you'll be hearing from that album is entitled The Corpse Danced at Midnight, performed by Gabe Violet. I chose Gabe to sing the song not only because he's awesome, but he was also in the original production of Spring Awakening, so I thought that was a fun tie-in with Michael's episode. So some fun geekery things about The Corpse Danced at Midnight. That is actually the title of the first novel that Angela Lansbury's character wrote on Murder, She Wrote. The song itself is not related to the plot of that fictitious novel or the TV series at all. I just kind of took the title and ran with it. As I continue to work on the songs, that is the intent, not always taking the titles literally, because, maybe I should have seen this coming, but as I was looking at the titles that people were voting on, I was like, oh, this could be a very dark, murderous album, but we don't want that. We want something fun. I look forward to sharing sneak peeks of all of these songs with you, performed by my guest artists, and then in a couple months' time, hopefully be able to debut the fully realized versions of these songs in album form. Much, much gratitude to the good people of Murder We Spoke, which is a podcast, not surprisingly, about Murder, She Wrote, where Marissa, Melissa, and Ben will watch an episode and then they recap it in a hilarious and loving and genuine way. I'm a huge fan of theirs, and they've been so amazing in helping get the word out about this album as it's in its starting phases. So if you like Murder, She Wrote, and I know that you do, please do yourself a favor and subscribe to Murder We Spoke on iTunes. This performance will be available to stream on SoundCloud, and a video on YouTube. So now I'm going to close out the episode with Michael Arden, and then we'll get right to The Corpse Danced at Midnight from the Cabot Cove EP, performed by Gabe Violet. Are you pretty active on social media?
Yeah, I'm on the Twitter.
You're on the Twitter?
The Instagram.
At Michael
that's
Arden.
Michael Arden, just my name.
Great. Nice and simple. Let's see. Be sure that you follow Michael Arden on all things social media, as well as myself. Please go see Spring Awakening if you're here in the city. It goes through January 24th.
Goes through January 24th, and please come see it. We only have a few weeks left, and it's really... I'm not just saying this because I directed it. It's unlike anything you'll ever see on Broadway, perhaps ever again. So I encourage you to come see something that's truly an event.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. It's such a beautiful and special thing. It's an experience for sure.
Yeah, and to see this talent that is like truly they're all stars.
Mind-blowing.
And so many of them have been so often overlooked. To be able to see them shine so bright is truly a blessing.
From the Music Hall at DGF, this is Joel B. New.
And I'm Michael Arden.
Saying thank you for dropping by for something new.
Bye, guys.